Racism in the form of job exclusion and racially stereotyped roles has defined the Hollywood film industry since its birth in the early 1900s. Wang writes in her book, Real Equality, Hollywood Actors and Racism. This is a sad fact because it is all too true. Although representation of minorities on screen is on the rise, discrimination is still more prevalent in people's everyday lives because the representation tends to be poor and stereotypical. These inaccurate portrayals of people are very racist and damaging to the lives of minorities and need to be curbed immediately. Now, I just want to make it clear that any clips that I show don't mean I dislike that media. I'm simply providing an example of something I've seen. Now, on to the rest of the video. The people we see on screens are not as diverse as we think. Now, you might disagree with this statement saying, nowadays there's way more representation, especially with movies such as Crazy Rich Asians and In the Heights. But for every one of these inclusive movies, there are many more Fast and Furious movies and other male-oriented action films. Only 2 out of every 10 lead film actors, or 19.8%, were people of color in 2017, the UCLA Hollywood Diversity Report found. People of color have yet to reach proportional representation within the film industry, PBS NewsHour states. Now, when we talk about proportional representation, we can easily see it through a study conducted by the Nielsen Company. Now, in case you didn't know, Nielsen is a global marketing research firm that makes its money by selling its data as well as its services, which include analytics, consulting, and reporting. The report that the Nielsen Company conducted that I'm talking about deals with the diversity and inclusion of minorities in the top 300 programs in 2019. The results showed that a staggering percentage of America's population was vastly underrepresented. Nielsen found women, Native Americans, and Latino people were among the most underrepresented groups relative to their numbers in the general population. An article by NPR reports. It goes on to say, for example, women make up to 52% of the US population, but they only show up on screen 37.9% of the time. According to Nielsen's study, it uses a metric called share of screen, the percentage of time members of specific groups appear as recurring cast members, to measure how often TV viewers actually see these types of people. Despite making up over half the US population, women are still very underrepresented because the white male has such a hold on the industry and are getting far more share of screen in proportion to their population percentage. Just look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Out of 26 films, there are only 2 films that star mainly women in the lead role, and 2 films that star people of color in the main role. This pales very much in comparison to the 13 films starred by a single white male. Disproportion of minorities on screen negatively impacts a large amount of our population. This is because seeing people that one can relate to on screen, represented in healthy ways, tends to help one navigate their world. Researchers have found that prolonged television exposure predicts a decrease in self-esteem for all girls and for black boys, but an increase in self-esteem for white boys. Wang from the Scholar Strategy Network states. She goes on to explain that this inflated self-esteem in white boys relates to the stereotypes that Hollywood casts are skewed in favor of white men. By this, I mean that Hollywood predominantly casts white men as heroes, while erasing or subordinating other groups as villains, sidekicks, and sexual objects. People might argue that the depictions of people in the media don't really matter and don't affect people very much because one should be able to tell the difference between life and on screen and reality. However, if that was true, Facebook and Instagram wouldn't be facing so much scrutiny as of November 2021 for their content being damaging to teen self-esteem. How is this different from what teens see in movies? It has the same effect. Stereotypes have roots all the way to the beginnings of Hollywood and have only changed throughout history. Of 4,315 adults across the UK who were surveyed, a clear majority believe cinema too often falls back on discredited stereotypes, including sexless older women, drug dealing, over-sexualized black people, and gay people whose lives are dominated by their sexuality, Amelia Hill stated while writing an article for The Guardian. Even more examples of this include the popular stereotype of Asian characters either as smart and nerdy, or that they all know martial arts. A more recent trope that has developed around Asians is that they are all the model minority, meaning that they might be scientists, doctors, or in some technical field, and most likely they're good students, come from good families, and don't have any economic problems. Stereotypes around another minority that is far too often portrayed is that black men are portrayed as scary or angry.
Oh, come on, Stanley, put your little game down and join the group.
No,
Stanley, we're having a little
Leave me alone, damn it.
We're having a brainstorm session.
Did I stutter?
A black woman might be portrayed as loudmouthed and sassy.
Hush.
Damn, Ma!
I'm sorry.
You had to hit me like that, but keep your damn hands to yourself.
Hattie. Shh.
Don't be shushing me.
If a movie features a token black character, it's likely to be a black best friend. These aren't even all the large stereotypes seen on screen. Stereotype also doesn't just prey on race. Sexuality is also largely misrepresented. Portrayal versus Betrayal study found that 2 in 3 respondents agree that gay characters are too often portrayed with sexual orientation as their main trait. 3 in 5 say that they are too often shown as being camp. Among the gay, lesbian, and bisexual population, those views are held out of 4 out of 5 people. Among the issues of stereotyping minorities is another issue. Parts for minorities are often cast by people who are most definitely not the race or sexuality they represent on screen. The character of Will, a character that identifies as gay on the television show Will and Grace, was portrayed by Eric McCormack, a straight man. McCormack was cast over actor John Barrowman, an openly gay man in real life. After Barrowman's audition, the producers of the show told him that he was, quote, too straight to play the role. Another instance of this is in the movie Doctor Strange, where the character of the Ancient One, who was Asian in the Marvel Comics, was cast by a white actress. Disability drag, a term used for casting able-bodied actors in the role of characters with disabilities, is another instance of unfair casting. This has only been enforced by its Oscar-worthy appeal. Since 1947, out of 59 nominations of disability characters, 27 won an Academy Award. There is still hope, however. The Indian character Apu on The Simpsons has been criticized for years for reinforcing racial stereotypes, and now might be facing a radical change. Hank Azaria has apologized for voicing the Indian character Apu on The Simpsons. Hank, who's white, has played the convenience store owner since 1990. He announced that he was going to be stepping down from voicing Apu in January 2020, said a BBC article. This shows that there is a great awareness for this kind of misrepresentation, but unfortunately it doesn't get acted on enough. The film and television industry is booming, but is lacking in accurate depictions of minorities even if they are depicted, which is rare. The simple fact that a movie or show has a person of minority cast in their production doesn't mean that their film or show is suddenly now inclusive. In fact, it's very much exclusive when the character's depiction is racist, making it hard for real people of those minorities to function in everyday life. These stereotypes representations are damaging to today's population, not just in the US, but all over the world. Hollywood needs to know, stereotypes are not okay, and it is necessary to cast more fairly. Nancy Wang Yuen ended her article with a quote that I'm going to borrow it to leave you with. As Viola Davis stated in her 2015 Emmy Award acceptance speech, if they exist in real life, then we should see it on TV. We should see it on stage or on the screen. As many people are out there, as many stories are being told.